Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
What are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about the topic of spiritual protection and how to sort of navigate difficult, denser frequencies and navigating unwanted energies in your environment and
Hmm.
how to build up resilience through that.
Yeah,
So it's a little different of a topic this time. Um,
yeah, and
but
it's
yes.
no doubt an important topic to contemplate when people are interested in spiritual ascension. Um, Part of ascension is not just seeking after the higher frequencies, but is also a process of culling denser frequencies, whether it's activities, people, environments which um, hold people down, which keep people stuck in these karmic loops of repeating the same um, behaviors, lower behaviors, which keep one trapped. Um, Often in spiritual discussions, we talk about experiencing the bliss, but we also need to um, ensure that our garden, our blissful garden, is cold of us weeds.
Mhm.
The insects, the pests, which
Mhm.
seek to prevent your garden from growing in the most flourishing manner. So we can take this in many sort of directions. We could talk about um, how does a person respond to a negative energy?
Mm, I like that. Um, I would say responding to negative energies is a very tricky matter because it can be quite triggering. And it's like if somebody slaps you, you want to slap them right back. But you shouldn't do that, is what we're trying to say.
Mm,
Although it is highly tempting, but I would say there is something called the middle way. The middle way suggests that you develop a higher level of awareness before you're about to have that reaction to disrespect, because it's a big world and you meet a lot of people that are not on your level, that disrespect you, that test your energies, that cross your boundaries. So it is very important to sort of have the correct assertiveness but a heightened spiritual perspective on it. So for that you sort of have to develop this higher lens of seeing everyone as like they are only portraying their own flaws. So it is very important to not take it personal, because if a person is saying something to you that's rude or mean, or comments online or whatever, it's quite the virtual world, and a lot of people say a lot of things without thinking twice. So in that case, you should know that they are probably going through something themselves, and it is a reflection of them versus a reflection of you. So you do not perceive that as an attack. It's very important to see it as it is that person's energy versus you thinking, oh, that's coming towards me, because it's not directed towards you.
mm,
So once you develop that form of understanding, it becomes simpler, because why would you slap somebody if you don't perceive that as them slapping you? Because they are
mm.
not slapping you. It's more so that you are witnessing their own flaws and you are the observer. So, in simple terms, it is much better to sort of be in the seat of the observer and not react, although that is tempting. Developing a higher level of patience and awareness before you respond is vital in situations like that, is what I would say.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. Before I address that point,
Yeah.
I just noted your hand movements were. I'll just be conscious of moving your hand with the microphone because it
Yeah.
can do like
Oh, oh,
fluffy
the
sounds.
noise. Oh, got
But
it. Yeah,
hopefully it's not too bad. It's something I learned because I use hand gestures a lot. So,
that makes
but
sense.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, you made a lot of important points regarding how do we react and choosing a sort of a wise reaction as opposed to perhaps an intuitive reaction towards aggression of feeding, coming lowering one's consciousness to the level of the negative energy to fight with it, to grapple with it, because that can be tempting to do so. It's tempting to to give in um, if someone is slighting you, who is lower than you, and then you are in that activity of engaging with that person, you are lowering your awareness to that level in order to engage with them. Um, it's like you told me the story of how the elephant,
Elephant.
yeah, the elephant walking through a kind of a path, and there's dogs barking in it, but
Yes,
the dogs bark. The elephant has no response. There's no reaction because the elephant knows where it's going,
exactly.
and the dogs, yes, they're barking, but the elephant is indifferent to um
The dogs
the
barking.
noise of the
Yeah.
dogs. And so the elephant has cultivated a sense of detachment ultimately. Yes, it's perhaps aware that such noise is happening, but it is a certain choice that we make to allow the noises of people's negative energies
Mm.
to enter into our sort of our fields
Hmm.
and to taint our fields. We don't. There is a choice there. As a choice to move to a different environment. As a choice to indulge in such energies by reacting and feeding it and stuff like that.
Hmm.
You see, there's certain negative energies you can. There is um, a reaction that you can do, a
Hmm.
wise reaction which addresses and neutralizes it. There are certain negative energies where if you give any kind of reaction, you feed it, and it will just come back with more energy. And in such situations,
Mm.
certain people like this where there's no reasoning.
Yeah.
Um, you
There's
know
no
then
fighting it.
that within them they have not cultivated any receptivity to having their awareness shifted. And in
Hmm.
such instances, there's no purpose to engage because you're only wasting your energy. Um, certain situations you can trust your gut really
Hmm.
in discerning whether this particular person, this particular entity, is worthy of the attempt to um, mold or shift or awaken. Because
Hmm.
a lot of people aren't ready for awakening. That's something
Hmm.
to that we all have to consider when we think about healing ourselves and extending that healing to other people.
Hmm.
Um, this isn't to say that we should be dismissive or we should say that this person, I should not waste any time with this person, but we should be conscious that we only have so much energy. We have only so much energy to give out
Give out.
in the effort of healing, and we need to prioritize our own health first and
True.
foremost. Because if we
True.
don't prioritize our own health, if we're constantly in this kind of this wounded
Healer.
healer archetype of healing everything but not healing ourselves first and
Yourselves.
foremost, we will just burn ourselves out.
Out. Yeah.
And people can obsess about healing everyone in their environment, all the negative energies. But
Savior complex.
yeah, it's a savior complex. That's correct.
Yes.
And it's good to have that compassionate impulse within us, but we should have compassion
For
for ourselves.
ourselves.
But yeah, um, you know, I think I think the next question or topic to go down is not just we talked a bit about dealing
Hmm.
with negative energies
Hmm.
external to us. How do we deal with the negative energies which are seemingly internal to us? You know.
Right. I feel that dealing with inner self is a reflection of how you deal with some conflict that's outside of you. So, if you want to master conflicts, the first thing you need to do is sort of understand the conflict that you have within yourself. We all have battles that we fight within ourselves first, and conflict is just a reflection or a manifestation of that outside. So, probably, I would urge you to sort of look into your environment. If you are in a high stress conflict environment where you come across fights often, that might also be a result of you having something unresolved, an argument or a conflict unresolved within yourself. Because the first and foremost thing to know is everything is a reflection of how you are inside. Your inner world is the reflection of your outer world. So, if you start with that fundamental knowledge, it is easier to practice what I say next because you start off on a very clear front. You start off with clarity. So, with that, identification becomes easier. So when you notice these feelings arising within yourself, like maybe you are trying to let go of certain behaviors or you're on a path of healing, and you notice yourself repeating certain old paradigms or certain old patterns, or we call it the past self. If you see yourself indulging in behaviors that you cannot respect within yourself, it is very important to know that you have to develop compassion for yourself. If you learn the art of forgiving yourself, relationships, people, humans, the world will be very easy. The second you learn how to show compassion to yourself, like if you've made a mistake, like let's say people have a drinking problem but they're trying to let go of it, but some days you can't resist it and you had a drink or something. In that case, it's more so most people fall victim to guilt. And what we want to do is we want to promote the perspective of compassion in a way that, oh, I made a mistake and that's okay. And once you learn how to sort of bring yourself to equilibrium, it's easier to sort of do that with other people as well, because a lot of negativity arises within yourself, but you must find a unique way to soothe that. Gratitude is a very good practice that I personally started working with. um, the more grateful you are, the more you learn how to rewire your brain from thinking like, oh, this is happening to me. Like, let's say you're going through a negative emotion, right? Like you feel anger or fury or envy or whatever it is. In that moment, if you pause and you introduce awareness, okay, the second you introduce awareness and then you bring in gratitude, like, oh, yes, this terrible thing is happening to me, but I am so grateful to be alive, or I'm so grateful to sort of be in this room on a bed, or just any form of gratitude. Gratitude is a beautiful, magical frequency that is very powerful to shift. The point is, we've been hardwired to focus on the negative. So even if you have a negative emotion, it's very important to not dwell in it. Yes, allow yourself to feel that emotion, but lingering is a problem. You start cultivating more, you start hoarding more negative energies if you linger on it too much. It is the art to allow emotions to flow through you and surrender to it, but staying in the same spot for too long is a stalemate. You have to learn the art of letting go of that emotion and swimming with it, not drowning in it. A lot of people drown in sorrow. That's why you never really move on. But we introduce the element of moving on through surrendering to that emotion, and by showing compassion to yourself, to others in that particular situation, and allowing yourself to go on further, is what I would say. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think treating sort of negative emotions not with an attitude of repression or pushing them away, um, but seeing them when they first arise as ultimately a kind of signal, a signal from the body that something is in disharmony. And like you say, like these signals, they serve a purpose, they serve a function, they orient our awareness to something that we should be paying attention to.
Hmm.
But often, like you say, it's a tendency of our minds to reify and amplify that
Yeah.
signal um, beyond where it is useful. And then when
Yeah.
we reify and amplify it within our minds by ruminating on that negative emotion, we can spiral ourselves deeper and deeper into a denser state of mind where we can start catastrophizing
Yeah.
the negative feeling. We can start, over
Dramatizing it.
over exaggerating it. And when we exaggerate it, then we can take a small thing, a minute thing, and blow it up into a very, very big thing. Um, and that will, you know, you will you will find yourself in a very heavy state, a very dense state of being,
Yeah.
and that's why this it's very important to cultivate emotional equanimity, a kind of an unconditional acceptance
Mhm.
and attachment towards all the various sensations and feelings and emotion that flutter through our day. Um, we should surrender and accept them when and as they arise, but do not get caught up with them, and notice when your mind is getting caught up with them. And we should have a kind of awareness of our mind such that we can catch ourselves when we are in excessive rumination. We
True.
can think, okay, I've been thinking about this thing for 5, 10, half an hour now. Am I reaching a state of emotional insight and emotional release, or am I making it more and more tense? Am I putting myself in a more of an anxious state? And this requires awareness. It
Yes.
requires being able to notice the process of emotional resolution, and to notice when the process of emotional resolution is going off track. And you know, it's important to pay attention to our emotions, but it has to be a kind of a right use of attention. And that's a difficult thing to cultivate for a lot of people. A lot of people are very, I would say, dissociated from their deep emotional
States.
states. They're almost in this kind of going through the motions. They're busy. They are caught up within their mind and their things that they have to do, and they don't afford themselves the conscious space to do deep inner emotional work, because this isn't something that is truly encouraged by
True.
our society. And when people, you know, make the step of doing that inner emotional work, that's often leads to what we call shadow work.
Yes.
An inquiry into the parts of our psyche which are often concealed from waking conscious life. And when we tap into that field, you will a lot of people will be pulling on a thread of deep repressed emotional traumas regarding their life, their
Everything.
situation, their relationships, and that can be very, very confronting for people, and that makes people wish to um, distract themselves, with entertainment, with
Pleasure.
addiction, pleasure, because confronting truth is scary, you
That's
know?
true. Yeah.
And in the moment, it is more comfortable to not emotionally introspect. But this just prolongs the issue. For a lot of people, this will prolong the issue. Um, Not integrating one's emotional depths um, will it doesn't erase them. It will just your lack of emotional integration will simply
Promote.
it will
Yeah.
project into your life in unconscious ways. So you can either act unconsciously or you can act consciously. But to act consciously, you have to confront emotional traumas which are scary. But there is a light on the other side. It's not all scary. There is a powerful um, there's a powerful potential for healing when you can look through it, and when you can integrate it, because you can integrate it. It is a limiting belief for you to think that I am not capable of confronting my emotional depths. We all are capable of confronting our emotional depths,
It's inbuilt.
but
Yeah.
it's important to be mature and to not take on more than you can um,
Handle.
contain in the moment, because if you confront your emotional depths in a dysregulated way, for example, if you do a psychedelic trip without preparing for it, this isn't to stigmatize psychedelics. They've been a powerful part of my own personal journey, but I also have seen how the unmeasured and unwise use of psychedelics to, reduce the veils within your mind between the conscious and unconscious, that for people who are not mature enough to know the significance of what they're doing, um, that can be you'll get downloads from your unconscious which can be overwhelming and uncomfortable to bear with. So some people will probably benefit from a more measured process of looking, and rather than one where you're just flooded with everything, and because that can overwhelm you and in fact re-traumatize you. So it's important for people to think about when the the process of confronting negative energies within oneself is, by its very nature, a process of shadow work, and that will always be difficult and confronting. but it doesn't have to be. You can get used to it, and when you get used to confronting um, the uncomfortable parts within yourself, you in fact become stronger and more resilient as a result. You strengthen a kind of psychic muscle, I find,
Mm.
you know?
I like what you said about strengthening the psychic muscle, because
Mm.
that is something that a lot of us sort of don't really even know exists properly, let alone strengthening it. We are at levels of such deep spiritual amnesia, as they call it, that we are completely asleep to the fact that all of this exists in the first place. Because we are not taught this in school or society. Nothing promotes that sort of environment to be contemplative, because we live in a very rushed, filled, busy world where there is no time at all for yourself, for others, for people you love. There is no time because our time has been eaten by being mini robots for bigger companies. So that's just one of the aspects. But I feel like in this busy life, for you to choose yourself is vital. For you to choose a space, a time, being contemplative is not a thing you do from time to time. It's a way of being. You are contemplative. You do not find time to think about something. You are aware. Awareness is cultivated till the point you become so aware that you are awareness itself. You move as an embodied being. It's a different state of living. It's a different lifestyle, as they call it. It's a different state of consciousness. You dwell in a different state. That is what we promote, and we wish for people to know that this is something that you can experience in your reality if you choose it to be. And this might seem very out of reach for a lot of people. They don't even have a notion of freedom or what freedom looks like, because you're so trapped. You're so trapped, like you can't even fathom what it's like on the other side. The other side, the more unknown side, the unconscious, it's all aspects of awakening to a larger, a higher state of consciousness. But I feel like a lot of people who are having questions is what motivates us to seek answers and to go on a quest in that search of what is, and I would say to follow your little nigglings, to follow your little intuitive questions. That is always the start of a spiritual journey, indicators of a spiritual quest, and those questions will lead you to deeper knowings about yourself, about why the world is the way it is, and what you can do to make it better, and what you can do in yourself to make it better. So I would say stick to your questions. Questions are your best friends. Inquiry, shadow work is based on questions. You have to have the ability to question. You have to have the ability to be curious in the first place, to learn. You cannot learn without curiosity. That would be conditioning.
Mm.
So I feel like that was potent. But yeah, so you have to have a very high level of wanting to know from yourself, not because somebody told you, like, oh, you should know what psychology means. If you don't have an innate curiosity, if you don't have an innate pondering, you will not want to know. It will just be like you're studying a textbook, but you're not really interested. To develop that interest, to sit with yourself, to see what you like, to see what you don't like, to be curious about yourself, to be curious about other people is what will make your human life more enjoyable, because we're in this world, but we're not of it, as most people know. So it's sometimes you have to learn how to be human, because we also come from a galactic perspective of souls coming from different planets here reincarnated. As people know, I speak and preach more about the star seed aspect as being one, and most of us are. So I also involve that. So I speak of a blend. I do not speak of one or the other. I speak as a multidimensional whole, and there's a lot of aspects to be curious about, but this is just a little niggling that if you're curious about, you should look further into. This is just a promotion to your own sort of spiritual journey and spiritual questions. But
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to provide a sort of concluding thought for the people listening
Yeah.
is to look at what is their life all about, really. Is it all about, working 40, 50 odd weeks a year for, a couple of weeks of vacation here and there? Is it to live a life of empty entertainment every evening, feeling burnout, dissociated from yourself, um, pursuing, barely living beyond, you know, paycheck to paycheck, um, a lot of human beings are in a material condition where they are not granted the opportunity to introspect, the opportunity to contemplate the nature of existence. A lot of people are in Maya, as you describe it, an illusion, the matrix, whatever way you wish to describe it. And this is by design. There are societal structures that are um, have the effect of contracting one's consciousness. Um, the expansion of everyone's awareness is not uh, socially or politically advantageous for certain entities. This is why psychedelics are illegal in our society, and alcohol, cigarettes, caffeine, they are legal. And um, this isn't the rulings of a benevolent state who wishes to protect one's consciousness. This is the activity of a state which wishes to contract one's
To
consciousness
deteriorate
and
it.
to
Yeah.
deter you to fearmonger altered states of consciousness, to stigmatize it,
Hmm.
to you know to keep people from knowing who they are, essentially. Because if people know who they are, they know their power, they know that they shouldn't, they will see through the oppression that is often unconsciously
Mm.
assimilated into because it's normal, you know. And there are many different matrices, that exist in life. There's a food matrix, there's a money matrix, and it ties into the whole distinction between the esoteric and the exoteric. The exoteric would be the
Mm.
teachings and information that is accessible to the masses. The esoteric is the
Intake.
teachings and information which is behind a wall. It's only accessible to certain select few, select initiates. But in our current age, there's been a
Mm.
destruction of that wall between the exoteric and the esoteric. So all is accessible, all is knowable if you wish to look. And so many entities, many organizations whose existence depends on this concealment of information,
Mm.
they are crumbling down,
The Matrix.
and
Mm.
and that carries with it all sorts of interesting social developments which we will live through. And
That's very good.
but that's
Yeah.
we'll save that discussion for another day.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good place to sign off. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, hope people have enjoyed. We'll point people to look into both of our sort of social media channels, and we'll
Yeah.
put them in the description.
Of
The
course.
alignment Instagram page as well, which is a healing and ascension space that we are building.
Cultivating. Yeah.
Um, there are also places which people can look to if they wish to have the mentorship or
Yeah. Healing
energy
sessions.
healing sessions with either of us. Um, and
Guidance. Just guidance if you ever
exactly,
need it.
yeah. But adios, people. Hope that was
Bye.
good, insightful, and
Yeah.
have an amazing day. Goodbye.
Bye.